Cody! Cody? You okay, man? You sure you want to do this? I mean, I can just ask someone else.
No. I've already opened up Pandora's box by saying in my books versus films review of Jurassic Park that this movie was the weakest in the whole entire franchise, so I might as well finish what I started.
Did you just plug your show on my channel?
You bet Jurassic I did!
Oh, terrific.
Well, after the release of The Lost World, Spielberg was asked about the possibility of directing a third film, to which he responded that it would be a tremendous headache for him to make, and that he had no interest in returning to the series as a director.
Joe Johnston, who had worked with Spielberg as a visual effects artist on the Indiana Jones movies, had previously asked to direct a Jurassic Park sequel, and Spielberg happily handed over directorial duties on the third movie for him.
The movie was officially announced in June 1998 with Johnston as director and Spielberg as producer, who gave Johnston complete creative control on the condition that he couldn't copy him. Michael Crichton was asked by Spielberg to collaborate on the screenplay, but he declined, stating that he wanted to move on from the series.
Spielberg's initial plan was to have Alan Grant sneak onto one of the InGen Islands and living there as a hermit while researching the dinosaurs, but Johnston later discarded it as he couldn't imagine that Grant would want anything to do with the dinosaurs after the traumatic events of the first movie.
Nothing to worry about, sir.
Craig Rosenberg was hired on to write the script for the movie, and his version would have involved teenagers living on Isla Sorna, but this was also rejected by Johnson, who said that it read like a bad episode of Friends. Wait till they see what DreamWorks did with Camp Cretaceous. They'll have a field day with that one.
Another draft was then handed in by Peter Buckman under the title The Extinction Jurassic Park 3, and this would have involved two parallel storylines. The first involving the Seven-style investigation where the dinosaurs were causing a series of mysterious deaths on the mainland, and the second following Grant and a family of survivors who crash land on the island, ending with Grant choosing to stay there rather than be rescued.
However, Johnston also rejected this version, feeling that it was too complicated. David Keough, who wrote the previous films, came on board to help with the rewrites, where he incorporated the idea of a family member being stuck on the island. Even more rewrites were carried out by Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor, who were hired to improve the film's characters and story, despite neither writers being big fans of the previous two movies.
In terms of casting, Sam Neill was eager to return as he was dissatisfied with his performance in the first film and felt like it could have been improved.
You're the best. You've seen these animals in the flesh. There's no one even comes close to you.
Because Jeff Goldblum was busy. William H. Macy, who played Paul Kirby, initially rejected the script, having no interest in being part of a blockbuster franchise. It wasn't until his friend Laura Dern encouraged him to accept the part that he finally agreed.
However, by the time filming was due to start in August of 2000, the script was still unfinished. Most of the middle portion was incomplete, and the story still didn't have an ending. To make matters even worse, Spielberg backed out of production altogether to direct AI, artificial intelligence, and Johnston was forced to go ahead and film anyway, as the studio had already spent $18 million on the film at this point.
Furthermore, because of the slow pace of filming due to the technical preparations needed for the animatronic dinosaurs, filming was a nightmare for the entire cast and crew. Most shoots would last up to 12 hours, and it was estimated that only a quarter page of script was filmed per day. The script has been evolving and being rewritten as we go, and what you want to say is, who launched a $100 million ship without a rudder, and who's getting fired for this?
That is a very, very bad idea.
It was the only part I've ever done that just had nothing for me to latch onto character-wise. It was kind of maddening.
Thank you.
More of my makeup was to cover the real bruises than to create fake ones.
Can you believe that?
Johnson himself said that he often considered walking off the production multiple times as the uncertainty about how the movie would turn out with no finished script was extremely stressful. Making Jurassic Park 3 was a living hell on a daily basis. We shot the whole thing without a finished script, and it was nerve-wracking, but it was also a way of freeing up the whole creative process. We could literally decide on the day how we want a scene to progress. I'm not saying it's the way to make movies, but it gives you more freedom.
That's not good.
So after endless script rewrites, 5 months of filming and a very unhappy cast, Jurassic Park 3 was released on July the 18th, 2001, and though it was a hit, it didn't manage to replicate the success of the previous two films, only grossing $368 million worldwide, making it the lowest grossing in the entire franchise.
Furthermore, like The Lost World, reviews were mixed, praising the effects and the action scenes, but criticizing the story and characters. However, unlike The Lost World, the movie managed to gain a cult following, with reviews coming in that were extremely positive, and even some people claiming that this sequel is better than The Lost World.
How?
Now it all makes sense.
In fact, Sam Neill not only went on record saying that he likes the film, but he actually prefers his performance in this one over the original. I was just talking to someone earlier in the day who said, I really like Jurassic Park 3 and it gets an unfair treatment. And I said, thank you very much. I agree that the last 10 minutes are way too easy and way too hurried, but I think up to that point, it's pretty damn good. Someone get Sam Neill his pills, the crazy old man's lost it!
Oh my god.
While I am ashamed to admit that this movie was my introduction to the Jurassic Park franchise, I will admit that this is the worst of the bunch. And that's saying a lot.
The setup of the film is Topanga's dad here taking this kid to a fucking restricted dinosaur island, and his parents are apparently completely cool with it. And then they get attacked by some water dinosaur that hasn't swam to the mainland yet for some reason, or it's some completely silent pterodactyls, I don't know.
Raptors were fierce, intelligent, and socially sophisticated. They were able to hunt in numbers and coordinate their efforts.
They were also completely covered in feathers that looked like giant chickens, but shh!
Are you saying that you wouldn't want to get onto Isla Sorna and study them if you had the chance?
No force on earth or heaven could get me on that island.
Unless they paid me enough.
Then a businessman, played by William H. Macy, tricks Alan Grant to going on the island, believing that he's there to study dinosaurs, but actually trying to find their son.
The setup is already incredibly weak because we're supposed to believe after the events of the first movie, Alan is so traumatized by what happened that he'd still go back after a tiny bit of resistance and enough money. But what makes it worse is that he doesn't even check out Macy's background. It turns out the business he claims to own isn't even real.
There's no such thing as Kirby Enterprises, is there?
Some man fully committed to going to a dinosaur island without anything being signed or even looking into the guy he's doing business with. And that's the main problem with this movie. Everyone is a moron. And this is a sequel to a film where humans kidnapped a baby T-Rex.
It's not safe.
I mean, they all head to a dinosaur-infested island, and once they land, they immediately start screaming for their son, and when Alan points out that that's bringing attention to themselves on a dino island, they don't understand what the problem is, and then they panic and run in fear when a dinosaur shows up. What the fuck did you expect? It's a dinosaur island! In fact, most of the movie is the humans on a dinosaur island shouting like morons.
Ben! Eric! What's a bad idea? Oh, God, will you shut the fuck up?
How even when they're hiding from raptors they keep shouting? They're as stealthy and subtle as Osama bin Laden. Hell, the kid survives 8 weeks on his own and he even shouts out.
They all deserve to die.
The whole reason they bring Alan with them is because he's a dinosaur expert, and they still deliberately ignore absolutely every bit of advice he gives them.
Well, what's the good of hiring an expert if we're not going to use his advice?
And don't worry, remember how we wanted Alan and Ellie to break up? Me neither, but here we are.
Yeah, say what you want about Dominion, but at least Colin Trevorrow tried to rekindle their relationship. This one just feels like an unsatisfying follow-up to their relationship from the first movie, especially when their chemistry from the first one was so perfect that you would love to see them get married and have children. But apparently in this movie, the writers decided to reduce his character to be nothing more than a simp.
We may as well address it as well. The infamous dream scene which makes a damn dinosaur talk, and it's this very movie's fault for nobody ever being able to take the name Alan seriously ever again.
Alan.
I read a few fan theories saying that the reason why he has these dreams was because he was traumatized from the events of the first movie. But here's the thing, why this doesn't hold any water. He wouldn't put himself in that kind of situation if he was really that traumatized.
But my god, what happened to the special effects? They look awful! Makes it even more asinine when they outrun the Fakeosaurus.
I know the first two movies had moments where the special effects didn't age well, but my god, are they worse than this one. Most of the time you can tell which ones are animatronics and which ones are CGI'd.
Look at this. Does any of this stampede look even remotely real to you? Any of it? Some of the effects are fine, they're okay, but the CGI of the raptors is pretty good.
Honestly, I do agree with you on that point. It's funny how the animatronics on the bigger carnivores are a lot clunkier than the ones throughout the entire series, but there is so much care being put into blending the CGI raptors with their animatronic counterparts. In fact, I can go as far as to say that these are the best raptor effects in the entire franchise. Hear me out. While there's no doubt that the raptor effects are still good in the other movies, this one seems to be the most consistent I've ever seen out of the bunch. You look back at the first Jurassic Park movie and you will notice at least one or two hiccups with the raptor effects. Seriously, there's even a shot where one of the puppeteers put his hand on the raptor's butt. But in Jurassic Park 3 of all movies, the effects are so good that you can barely tell which is CGI and which is animatronic. Even the littlest details, like the animatronic raptor legs, give the creature a life on its own.
They have a fight between the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus, but it looks terrible. It is such an awkward fight, and who gives a fuck about the Spinosaurus anyway? Who wanted to see this pussy make the king of the dinosaurs look like a little bitch? It's like this movie deliberately goes out of its way to destroy the things you liked about the previous films. No fun allowed here, folks!
Yeah, before this movie came out, it was led to believe that Spinosaurus was bigger than the T-Rex and would even take down a T-Rex in a fight if they were to meet. But seeing that modern paleontology found more specimens of the creature, it makes the movie all the more dated.
It's not the most consistent though. Manages to break through concrete like it's mashed potatoes, but not this steel door. That's far too strong.
While you're complaining about that, I'm still wondering how they can hear the ringtone from one side of the jungle to another.
They come across the kid's camera, and of course it just so happens to still work, even though it's completely different to the footage earlier, especially considering he clearly wasn't even filming at the start of the movie. They find his remains, but did the dinosaur just eat his skin? Did he just lie there stuck in the tree while they ate him? I mean, they also say it's only been 8 weeks. How is he this decomposed after 8 weeks? All of this is wrong!
Eric, I have to tell you, I'm astonished that you've lasted 8 weeks on this island.
Care to explain how he did it? No? Alright.
This is T-Rex P. How'd you get it?
You don't want to know.
Yes! Yes, I do! Oh no, they're gonna make 3 more of these, aren't they?
We're gonna find him. Kid's got resources. Remember what it was like to try to ground him?
Because that's exactly the same as being stranded alone on a dinosaur-infested island. I must admit though, one thing the movie does seem to do right is the velociraptors. I mean, I don't quite get why it's just staring at her perfectly still. And it is smart enough to climb the door, but earlier they weren't able to push it, but now they can. They use victims as bait to trick the humans, which is really clever. They do hype up the intelligence of these creatures really well in this one.
Alan!
But don't worry, that face-off fella decides to try to steal dinosaur eggs from the island because we're only 3 films in and already got to rely on the original movie's ideas. I mean, I guess it is a little interesting because now they have the dilemma to keep the eggs or not, because either way they're screwed.
So after scolding Billy about the eggs, they go downstairs where we get admittedly the coolest freaking scene in the movie.
I mean, not sure why they don't just feed him directly to his babies, making them work for their food, I guess. And it is quite dark at points as he fights for his life, fair play. Sometimes it does have some genuinely decent suspense and tension. Not sure if that was supposed to be funny, but it is. Billy does end up saving the kid, so you can forget all about him being a prick 20 seconds ago. It's okay to like him again. The movie just turns the franchise into a joke. They dig through dinosaur shit and then a T-Rex shows up but leaves them because they smell. I mean, it's a little funny, but it just rids the previous movies of their suspense. It's a fucking joke.
Well, at least we all know how the writers were able to piece together a script for this movie. Wait, did you just call a Ceratosaurus a T-Rex? They're like two separate animals.
Look at this. They are fighting for their lives and are still this concerned with getting the phone. Even if they answer it and the person finds out where they are, they're not going to get there in time. Focus on surviving first, you morons! I must admit though, using a flare gun to hit the Spinosaurus and setting it on fire is pretty sweet. But I just don't understand how a movie this short drags this much. It's barely 90 minutes and they have 3 climax scenes. 3! Anytime you think it's the big finale, there's more!
Seriously, not even Return of the King had this many endings.
You've got the epic bird cage scene, then the Spinosaurus cage scene, then the raptors show up to get their eggs, and finally Ellie somehow manages to send the entire navy to the island to save them in one single night. This movie fucking sucks! And why do they even treat the ending as so wholesome? Pterodactyls are carnivores. They're flying off to eat more people and terrorize the human race.
Yeah, I would just wait for them to meet up with the escaped dinosaurs from Jurassic World Dominion. I'm trying to connect the Jurassic World extended universe here.
The movie is awful. The characters are all insufferable dickheads whose actions are painfully stupid and beyond irritating. The special effects range from fucking shit to mediocre and bland. It's a pointless movie whose very existence is constantly questioned by the weak plot. It's just a sign of things to come when it comes to money over logic.
The reason why this movie doesn't work as a sequel to Jurassic Park is very simple. The themes of the Jurassic Park movie have been stripped away from its very core in favor of a generic paint-by-numbers action-adventure movie. Now sure, there are little inklets here and there that deal with the themes of scientific integrity, but not enough to make it a Jurassic Park movie at all. If anything, you can take the established characters from the franchise out of the script, and anyone who is watching this movie would have never been the wiser. I guess if you want to watch a Jurassic Park movie that doesn't feel like a Jurassic Park movie and feels more like Indiana Jones with dinosaurs, then this movie might be for you. However, in my case, I think it's the worst out of the franchise. I'm sorry. It just is. It is.